And we will record the session today, and then we'll make that available after for your own networks and your own volunteers. So as I say, this is the second European Repair Café conference. We ran the first one last year with Martin and the Repair Café Foundation, where we had 110 people attend. But as I mentioned, this time round, we've had at least 220 repair cafes registered for this. So numbers are growing. So the structure of the session will be, there'll be short introductions by myself and Martin from the Repair Café Foundation. And then we will have a second session around policy and a presentation from Ada from the Commission about the Repair Café Directive, and then a couple of responses from a couple of repair cafes in terms of their takeaways from the presentation and a bit of discussion. We'll then go into a second session on engaging youth in repair cafes, and then a final session with a series of repair cafes who are at different stages of development, from one of the early repair cafes, one of the first 50 repair cafes, to a very new repair cafe, and that is coming from a very different perspective. And as always, I need to remember to thank our funders for this event. So this is the Strategic Priorities Fund from UKRI in the UK. So that point ticked off the list. So I'll now just pass across to Martine to introduce herself and to add any comments that she wants to make.
Okay, thank you, Martin, and good afternoon or good morning from wherever you're joining this session. It's great to see you all on this first More Than European webinar. And well, obviously not everyone from the community worldwide could join, for in Australia and New Zealand it's 3 AM at this moment, so understandably they couldn't make it. However, we had many reactions from people who really wanted to join and are looking forward to seeing the recording. And we have a very full program today, with many repair cafes sharing their views on different subjects. And Martin has asked me to briefly tell about certain things that we as Repair Café International Foundation see emerge. And several things that I see. Well, first of all, I still see after 13 years the vitality and the continuous growth of the network, which has really picked up again after the pandemic. And many existing repair cafes have been very well visited ever since the reopening. And this is clearly a result of their long absence during the pandemic, and possibly also a reaction to the cost of living crisis that we've been seeing around the world. And in the last year, I had many calls from journalists who asked specifically about that. They wanted to know if people started to come to repair cafes more because they had less money to spend. And I always answer that may be one of the reasons, but it's not the only reason. There are many reasons to come to repair cafe. And the financial aspect is, well, to my knowledge, is not the main reason why people show up and why visitors join. But of course, global developments are reflected in repair cafes too. For instance, last fall, we saw a sharp rise in the number of electric heaters being brought to repair cafes. And I believe this is a result of the war in Ukraine, which caused the gas prices to shoot up, and people started to look for alternative ways to heat their homes. And in many countries, people rediscovered their electric heating elements, brought them down from the attic and found out that they didn't function well anymore and took them to a repair cafe. As a result of which, repair cafe repairers in many countries have gained a lot of experience on repairing electric heaters. And another development is the right to repair discussion, which is really gaining momentum among policymakers and in the media as well. In Europe, this has everything to do with the European Commission finally presenting their plans to tackle this issue. But in the United States and in Australia, we see the same thing. Things are still going slowly and the steps taken are small, but the topic is on the agenda. And I firmly believe that it's not going away, not very soon at least. And this is an effect of all of you being visible in this community, striving for the same thing worldwide. We want to stop the throwaway society and we want to make it sustainable. We want clean and safe and livable future for our children. And for that, we need repair skills to be preserved in communities. We need repairable products and we need rules to support repair. So I want to thank you all for making this clear to policymakers and manufacturers and people in your community. And you can do this, and you actually already do this, by simply being in this movement and making repairs in your local repair cafe. For in doing so, you're contributing to the changes that we need, and that's wonderful. So keep doing that. And I really hope you'll enjoy this webinar and that you join in the discussion. And I'll stop talking now and let's go on to our next speaker who knows everything about the European right to repair plans. So Martin, would you like to introduce the next speaker?
So before we introduce the next speaker, I've just got a couple of slides to just give a little bit of context before we go into the presentation. So get the slides working. So as Martin said, right to repair has been now embedded in the Circular Economy Action Plan that the Commission passed a couple of years ago and is sort of moving forward. We're seeing repair and reuse emerge now in even policy. This is something I picked from the Welsh Government very recently. And the Welsh Government have actually funded over 100 repair cafes. They funded a coordinator and they now have 100 repair cafes in Wales as a country. And I think we've seen different clusters in different countries, but in many ways it's still, repair cafes are still sort of quite fragmented in that sense. And what's quite interesting is that repair cafes, they sit at this sort of the sort of connection between society and the economy. We talk about circular economy a lot, but what about circular society? What is the role of citizens? And so whilst we still own the products and the products are repaired, it's, it moves, the products have moved into ownership by individuals. So often outside of the, let's say particularly if they're outside of warranty, they're now into a different stage. So there's this very interesting place that's, that repair cafes sit within, maybe. And I've probably not got the full up-to-date figures here, Martin, but this is, I think, a couple of weeks ago, maybe it's a month ago, but the repair cafes are at least 2,700. I'm sure they're 2,800. And I think we recognize there are others that aren't yet registered on the site. And, so this is not a small number now. Still a lot are in a significant number in Europe, but they're, Martin was emphasizing, in North America and Australasia, particularly, there, the numbers are growing, at least compared to a few years ago. So explosive growth continues, and for there was a lot of pent up activity that was stopped by COVID, and I think what we're seeing, as I think Martin mentioned it, and others were mentioning just in the pre-discussion, was a lot of new repair cafes emerging, and well, new activity that was perhaps being thought about before COVID and then being sort of incubated, now starting to happen. So just a survey that we did a couple of years ago that I thought might be useful as a quick comment here. We did a survey with University of Eindhoven, working between ourselves and Martin, and we found that there was, generally within repair cafes, there's a sort of shared purpose and identity. So despite repair cafes not being connected in the sense, there is a sort of shared goal emerging, and a shared identity. Prime goal is around waste prevention, so hoping to get a product repaired. But a key thing that comes out of a lot of repair cafes is when people come out of repair cafes, there's tremendous sense of the citizen side and the civil society, the community side. So most repair cafes are monthly in public buildings. Volunteers are, between 4 and 20. Customer levels between 10 and 30. Concentration mainly in Europe. There is different types of structures within repair cafes throughout Europe. Some have national structures and regional structures. Some are very diffuse, that aren't really connected up. Essentially, repair cafes are highly, highly practical. Most repair cafes don't have a political role, or as a perception of really getting heavily involved in campaigning as such. But Martine and her team are quite heavily involved in the repair cafe, in, let's say, the repair policy activities. So still at that level of repair cafes on the ground, very, very, very practical. This was just a little survey we did in the UK. And we found that we tried to rank the specific issues that were most interest to repair cafes. And we actually found that, that social value side was really, really high, actually, with a lot of repair cafes. And other big issues were the ongoing issue around recruitment of volunteers, etc. But look at this slide again. If I was to do this again, there's a clear difference between, and Martine and I and others have had a lot of conversations about startup repair cafes. If you ask this question to startups, the big issue right at the top of that list will be access to insurance. So it depends a little bit on your stage of development as to maybe what the topics are. But this is a sort of average, if you like. But the social dimension, community dimension is actually very important to a lot of repair cafes. So COVID hit us all, and that led to stopping of activity, and sort of led to a movement from sort of what we might have recognized its list to perhaps, some of us looking at how we could operate when we were able to come out, and then shifting back into the mainstream again. So repair cafes have been through quite a significant change. And I think, at least for us as Farnham Repair Cafe, and we've run 80 sessions, it actually did lead to some level of innovation, because we had to rethink things and redo things. And I think we've come out of COVID, if you like, fitter and with newer repairers. We've lost some, but we sadly, hopefully I don't think we lost anybody physically through COVID, but some people moved and stuff. But we've certainly had a regeneration. And just the last thing I wanted to mention before we pass across to Ada is there is a link between undertaking the repair and carbon reduction. So for those who aren't aware of it, through our Repair Cafe and our activities, we'd be able to develop this free carbon repair carbon calculator to help calculate emissions from physical repairs, and that's freely available to anybody. So if anybody isn't aware of that, and wants to know more about that, please just get in contact with us. So I'll shut up now, and hopefully that's just given you a little bit of a background before I pass across to Ada from the Commission. So over to you, Ada.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this very interesting introduction, something also to learn for me. Indeed, my name is Ada Preziosi, and I'm working at the Directorate General for Justice and Consumers at the European Commission. And this is where we have developed the proposal for a directive on common rules promoting the repair of goods that is commonly called as the right to repair. And I would like to give you a little bit of context here. I think we can go a bit quicker through the slides in the sense that I'm not sure if all of them will be relevant to the audience, but let's see how it goes. Okay, so starting with the broader context, because I see that indeed there are many participants here from outside of Europe. So in the EU, the Commission is working on several policy priorities, and one of such priorities is the European Green Deal. That basically sets out very broad environmental objectives. And then we have further policy documents such as Circular Economy Action Plan that Martin already mentioned earlier, and the Consumer Agenda, and basically they do put forward the measures that the Commission should work on in the coming years. And indeed, sustainable production, sustainable consumptions, these are very valid points that are enumerated in both of these documents. And so what is our main purpose about this proposal is basically to encourage consumers to choose repair more often compared to replacement. So I think the next slide where I explain why we promote repair doesn't need to be explained here. I think we can skip this one. And we can go to the next one. Indeed, thank you. So something that is really important to bear in mind here is that indeed the right to repair can be understood in many different ways. And we have seen this before also when we were developing the proposal and talking to stakeholders. They tend to also, depending on where they are coming from, they can expect different things from this piece of legislation. However, it is important to indeed bear in mind that in the EU, we are working on this issue from a really broader perspective, because as you know very well that there are different bottlenecks to the right to repair at different level of supply chain. It is a very complex problem that cannot be just solved, let alone with one legislation, but even with a number of legislations. This is not something that can be easily put into actually a reality to the consumers, the citizens. And so the Commission is working on it from a more, I would say, horizontal, but also broader perspective. And the first starting point in this context is the idea that in order to make a right to repair a reality, we need to have products that are repairable by design, because without this, we cannot move any forward. And so this is why the Commission proposed a really important piece of legislation, which is called the Regulation on Eco-Design for Sustainable Products. And basically this legislation is a horizontal piece that will establish basically that products that are placed on the EU market must comply with a number of requirements, and from now on repairability and durability requirements will be a vital point of these product requirements that are absolutely necessary to be able to be placed on the EU market. Otherwise it will be illegal to place them on the EU market. Okay, so this is a horizontal piece of legislation, and then afterwards we will have a number of implementing measures that already exist for certain products but will continue to be elaborated and developed by the Commission to this is the idea in the near future to basically cover virtually all the products on the market. So this is like a very big framework. And now to give you an example, in this product specific pieces of legislation, there will be some quite concrete obligations for producers. For example, on making spare parts available, which spare parts must be made available, for how long, to whom they must be made available. There are usually usually a division between spare parts that must be made available to professional repairers and then also to end users. Then there are also requirements on disassembly, repair instruction manuals. So all of these very specific product repair related information would need to be provided by the producer. And this is already established and will continue to be established for different categories of products on the basis of that piece of legislation. I think this is very important to make a distinction between this piece of legislation and what we are proposing, what is often called as a right to repair. But as you can see, already a big part of it is covered by another Commission initiative. So coming back to what I said earlier, so that was the first step. We need to have these products repairable by design, but then we move forward. What we want also, we want the consumers to be able to choose the repairable products. Once they are in the shop, they want to compare the products that are available there, and we want to empower them to be able to decide whether they want to presumably pay more but have a more repairable and durable product or not. And for this, we need to give consumers information about repairability and durability at the point of sale. And this is the objective of another Commission initiative that also our Director General is working on. This is called Empowering Consumers in the Green Transition. So this is the sales stage. And the right to repair proposal that I want to talk about today is focusing on the use phase. We are targeting here the situation where consumer bought their product, they have it at home, and then it breaks. And we've seen that in most cases, consumers tend to replace such defective products for a wide number of reasons. And with this proposal, we wanted to increase the number of repairs on the market. Next slide, please. So indeed, as I mentioned, the main objective here is to focus on this moment in time when consumers have their broken product at home and they need to decide whether they will repair it or whether they will replace it. So this is why we are not focusing in this proposal on access to spare part or access to repair information, because this is usually not relevant for this particular decision-making moment. Next slide, please. Okay, so how did we approach this and how do we want to promote repair? Well, in the EU, we already have a sort of a right to repair that concerns defects covered under the legal guarantee. So we are proposing one development there, and then we have a number of measures that we are proposing that apply beyond the legal guarantee. Next slide, please. So here again, to a little bit explain what this legal guarantee is. So basically, the legal guarantee is the framework under which in the EU, the consumer has a right to claim from the seller repair or replacement of the good if it is defective and if the defect existed at the point of delivery. And the minimum period of time it is applicable in most member states in the EU is 2 years. So within these 2 years, if the product breaks and it is it was already there at the delivery, then the consumer can go to the seller and say whether they want to have this product repaired or replaced. And now what we have seen in the study that we prepared for developing this proposal, we've seen that in such situations, consumers to a large extent tend to opt for replacement. They are not interested that much in repair. And so in order to shift this, with our proposal, we are saying that sellers would be obliged to repair if costs of repair would be cheaper, or it would be at least as costly as replacement. So if repair is economically making sense for the seller, and as we know is good for the environment, then the choice of consumers should be reduced. So in this situation, normally consumers should not be able to have the product replaced unless, and here again is the tricky part, unless it causes significant inconvenience to the consumer. So we wanted to strike the balance here between focusing more on promoting repair and environmental goals, but at the same time not to reduce consumer rights too much. Therefore, in a situation where, for example, consumer asks to have the product replaced, the seller says no, it will be cheaper for me and it's better for the environment to repair, I will repair it, but if repair would last for a very, very long time, then this could be considered under the proposal that this causes significant inconvenience, and consumer could still then in this case to ask to replace the product instead of repairing them. So this is what we are covering within the legal guarantee. This is the only measure. And then what we cover beyond is on the next slide. There are three basically main elements. So the first element refers to the European Repair Information Form. The second one, obligation to repair for producers and to inform about repair options. And the online platform that is targeting member states. So let's start maybe with the European Repair Information Form. And the next slide. So here the idea was that we have seen in the study that prepared the directive, the impact assessment for this directive, that consumers lack sufficient information about the repair services. They often are not able to compare properly such services. And so we are proposing to give them the right to request this European Repair Information Form from any repairer. And the form is, the template for the form is already provided in the annex. And basically it would provide for main characteristics of the repair service. So it would say what kind of defect this concerns, and what would be the duration for repair, what would be the price of repair, and then any other offers or other conditions that the repairer can offer, for example, some sort of guarantee after the repair, or providing a replacement product during repair. All of these issues could be mentioned there in order for the repairer to promote their services. And the idea is that this form, the conditions would be valid for 30 days, so that the consumer could take it, could go to another repairer and then compare and find a repairer that suits best their needs. Next slide, please. Yes, the obligation to repair. Next slide. So this is basically, one could say, the core of the proposal. So we are proposing that producers of certain goods for which there are already repairability requirements would be required to offer repair to consumers. So what does this mean in practice? So as I said, that on the basis of these eco-design measures, there are already certain products that are covered and that are indicated in the annex to our proposal. We are talking here, for example, about fridges, dishwashers, washing machines, now since a couple of weeks also smartphones, tablets. For this type of products, there are already set in place reparability requirements. One of the most prominent requirements is that for all of these products, a number of spare parts must be made available for a specific period of time. Usually it's somewhere between 5 to 10 years. And so for these products, manufacturers will have to offer repair. They will also have to inform consumers about this obligation, and as I mentioned on the previous slide, as any other repairer, if they decide to repair, they will have to provide European repair information form. Now, I say if they will repair because they are also allowed to subcontract this. So they could decide that other independent repairers would carry out this obligation for them. Now, what is very important here to note, and what is a major difference compared to a legal guarantee situation, I said, sorry?
People remain muted. Thank you very much.
Is it fine? Can I proceed?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the main difference here with the legal guarantee, because within the legal guarantee, since it covers the defects that were only present at the delivery, normally the framework of the legal guarantee is that the remedy is always for free. So the repair or replacement is always for free for the consumer. Now here, under this producer's obligation to repair, basically the producer will have to cover, to offer repair for all sorts of defects that can happen to the product. So not only defects that are there at the delivery, but even if I buy a new smartphone and after 5 days I accidentally drop it on the floor and the screen is broken, now under this new obligation, the producer will have to offer repair of this. But since it covers also this kind of defects that are completely not the fault of producer, but are caused by the consumer itself, they are allowed to charge a price for it. So it's not going to be for free. This is the main difference with the repair under the legal guarantee. And as I mentioned earlier, so for the moment, we have decided in the proposal that we do not mention a specific period of time during which this obligation applies, because the timing should be aligned with the period of time for which spare parts must be made available under the specific product safety, pieces of legislation. So if a piece of dishwasher must be made available for 7 years or 8 years, then for this period of time, the producer will have to repair such good. Next slide, please. And then the final element is the online platform. Final slide. Thank you. So here, let's say the problem that we were trying to tackle was the fact that we've seen that consumers many times they have problems to actually figure out where they can repair product. Whether repairer, for example, deals with certain brands, or whether what are actually the prices for repair. So we have proposed that member states should establish at least one national online repair platform with a variety of search functions. And through the search functions, consumers would be able to find as close as possible to them the repairer that can repair their products. And also they should be able to request this repair form directly through the platform online. What is also important there is that we say in the recitals of the proposal that these platforms depending on the decision of the member states, could be also extended to repair cafes. So they could be also advertise. They can advertise themselves on this platform if member states decide to do so. Apart from repairers on the platform, there also needs to be a possibility to search for sellers of refurbished goods and also companies that want to buy defective products from consumers in order to refurbish them. So I think this is the core of the proposal. Without taking too much more time, I will be happy to answer if you have any questions. Thank you.
Martin, you're on mute.
Indeed, a classic Zoom conference problem.
Well done.
So whilst I have you on the line, John, maybe perhaps, John, if you might want to kick off with any observations or questions or thoughts, for Ada.
Right. Okay. I really stuck myself into that, didn't I? I was thinking I was going to ride on the back of Tom Hansing's great thoughts. Okay, I've got a few. Ada, thank you very much. That's brilliant, and it is nice to see. I think there are some issues with this in translation to repair cafes. Certainly, the things we seem to fix, I don't think are economic to repair. Most of them, and so there's a big issue around the costs, I think. If we deal with the main components of the thing of this standard you're talking about, perhaps you could answer a couple of questions really. The repair information form, do you think, you see, there's another issue here for repair cafes. Sorry, Martin, I'll try and keep this reasonably short. But the issue we've got is that we don't work on a homogeneous and a repeatable scope of equipment, so we don't know what we're getting in. So we would struggle to put a repair form or to comply with a repair form unless it said something like, if you can bring it in the door and it's not full of petrol, we'll have a look at it, and we'll have a look at it for free. But that would pretty well cover all of the items that we would be prepared to look at, from clothing to electronic goods to bicycles, anything. So I'm just wondering, do you see flexibility in that form?
Maybe something just to clarify, indeed, already to preempt the questions. The proposal as such does not apply to repair cafes, because the repairer, the definition of a repairer, unless you fall under the definition of a repairer, but it would mean that you need to have a professional, you are a professional sort of repairer. So this is your business activity from which you are making profit. So in my understanding, many repair cafes do not fall under this concept. So if you are not fulfilling this obligation, these conditions, then basically the directive doesn't apply to you at all. The only part that applies where you can benefit from it, actually, so it can be only positive for you, is indeed what I mentioned about the platforms. So you might be able to have a possibility to promote yourself on the online national platform if the member states decide that such a platform is also open to sort of this community initiatives such as repair cafes.
Okay, right. Thank you. Sorry about that. I read somewhere, and I was just trying to find it, that there was some uncertainty about repair cafes because it was talking about, maybe that's the scope of one of the other directives. I can't see it now. Okay, don't worry, let's move on that. Okay, so the online repair platform, that sounds like a good idea. I think it might be complex, but I think if there is a way, do you have views of how that will be promoted nationally, because with the sort of the way the internet goes these days, it's a complex thing to control.
I do see, of course, I do see a challenge there.
Yeah.
So I have to say that this is something that we have proposed, but there is a lot going on at the moment, because as you know, the Commission, I mean, the European decision-making process works in the way that the Commission comes up with a proposal, and then this proposal goes immediately to the European Parliament and to the Council that represents the member states. And then they come up with a lot of their ideas and amend what has been proposed by the Commission. And these elements that you are raising also have been already raised. So at the moment, it is true that in the original proposal, we have sort of delegated this role to the member states to promote, to raise awareness about the platform. And it would be normally up to them to decide how they want to do it. We, as the Commission, we could also carry out some promotional campaigns, awareness raising campaigns. But again, there are also some other talks that we don't know, maybe the solution could be that there could be some EU website that would give links to all the national platforms. There's still a lot that can happen there. So it's a little bit now too early to say where we will end up with this. But we also, our hands are tied to some extent, because indeed, I'm not sure what we could say by law to clarify and to make sure that there is a sufficient information about this available to consumers. Maybe you have some ideas.
Well, my only ideas were that there are some organisations existing, like the Repair Café Foundation, but of course these are, so from what you're saying, these are slightly peripheral to this, because you are aiming mainly at professional repairers. If that's the case, what I would say is that there's a fundamental shift needed first before this can bed in, and that is rather like Austria's doing in the, the funding or through vouchers and things to promote repair, because the economic balance is not in the favor of repair at the moment, because most of our goods are imported. They are produced many times automatically with minimal input or with cheap labor, and then the repair will not be economic. So hence I say, yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, on this, it was a difficult way, I would say, to balance what's in the proposal. And of course, the question of costs is sort of silent there, because it's very difficult to tackle. And there are reasons for which we decided not to say that the repair must take place for a reasonable price or affordable price, because these are words that, again, they lack sufficient meaning. So what we have tried to focus is on other elements. And it's true, we do not specify clearly the issue of incentives, because we believe that this is a matter for national law. And so what member states want to decide, also because the cost of repair, okay, they do depend on cost of spare parts, but again, they do depend in a lot, in a large extent also on the labor costs. And then the labor costs are something completely national. And so there was not enough space for us, we believe, to really interfere in that zone. But just to let you know, we have already received the European Parliament, and one of the committees that is responsible for the file already prepared a draft report in which they suggest certain amendments, and these amendments are there indeed for the member states to put in place certain financial incentives like the one in Austria. So it's in development.
Okay, well
Okay.
that's great, and thanks, John, for kicking it off. And maybe I can sort of pass across to Tom. Did you have any observations or questions or comments?
Yes, sure I have. Thanks for the possibility to speak here. The first thing I would like to say is about the repair obligation during the legal warranty. Because what is happening, in fact, with the proposal of the EU Commission is a limitation of rights for the consumers. Because how could they have insight on the real repair costs? There is nothing to find about transparency there. And if the manufacturer says, oh, repair is too cost intensive for me, then a manufacturer producer could go on by replacing goods. So before that, it was able, the consumer was in charge to choose, and the manufacturer, the producer, had to show if it's too if it's not economically viable. And this is in fact not something that helps consumers to choose more repair, but it limits their rights to take their right. It's a limitation of rights of the consumers, in fact. So the general criticism about the EU proposal is that it's very, very manufacturer and producer oriented. It's not for the people. It's not for the environment. It's not for the planet, but it's for the manufacturers that try to save their profit. Okay, it's very, very hardly spoken, but this is what I think about that, in fact. So this is the one thing, the limitation of consumer rights, and the obligation for repair after the legal warranty is only for a very few set of products. Maybe it's not enough time to wait for all the different categories of products till this is made possible. You know, it maybe takes too much time to go on like this. So what is inside the EU directive on eco-design is part of this obligation to repair after legal warranty. Maybe this is too slow. I think it's too slow. So it's a very small set of items is meant by this. And the third thing, I try to use hard words because the matching repair platform, it's good for the so-called professional market. It's good for the people who make the money with repair business and repair service. But to say it's helpful to promote repair cafe activities, and this is something that is like to clap hands, this is, I think, the wrong perspective. What is actually happening in the repair cafe movement, in the repair movement worldwide, is self-defense. It's a society in self-defense mode on the failure of market and state. That's fact. You know, the non-commercial repairers, what is happening in repair cafes is they tackle a really, really threatening challenge on how to use and how to deal with the goods. And it's not for profit. It's because it makes sense to repair products and to use them longer. And as the speaker before said, the bigger part of the products that are repaired in the repair cafe, they don't make, the repair is not the profitable business there. You know,
maybe Tom, we could give, for time, we could give Ada an opportunity to respond to a number of your points, because time is, we've only got about another 5 to 10 minutes, and we've got another speaker. So
okay, I can close this with this, because that's the point. So the repair cafe movement does not need promotion; it needs to be not needed anymore.
Yes, thank you. So indeed, now I completely hear all your points. These points have been also raised by other stakeholders. However, let's take note of what I said before, that indeed this proposal doesn't have as an objective to promote repair cafes. Okay, so this is something that we need to acknowledge, and the Commission is promoting repair cafes also via different instruments. I don't know if you know about the recent proposal just from last month. It's a Council recommendation where basically member states would be encouraged indeed to invest and to develop in developing and upgrading of societal skills on repair, digital skills, circular skills. So this, I would believe that your activities would fall much more under this recommendation there. And indeed, if there are financial incentives to repair, I presume that they could also be open to you. Now, on the specific aspect of the proposal, reduction of consumer rights, absolutely, I agree. And this is a question that we had to ask ourselves, what is more important at a certain point? Do we want to continue as is and seeing that consumers replace the products within the legal guarantee 90%, or we want to boost more repairs? This is a value choice, policy choice, that, as you can imagine, many member states are against such a solution because indeed they are against the reduction of consumer rights. However, as I said, we believe that this is a balanced approach, because still, if repair takes longer, then consumers still have a possibility to replace the product. And what is important, because I think you mentioned producer, legal guarantee in the EU has nothing to do with the producer. It's only against the seller. Now on the slow progress, indeed, again, we had a big debate to what extent we should basically what should be the scope of this proposal on this obligation to repair. And what we had to weigh is that on one hand, if we open up the scope, then we would end up with consumers going to producers saying that they want to have a product repaired, and then the producer would say, well, it's impossible to repair. And the consumer has no right to claim whether or not this is true. If we have reparability requirements that the producers have to comply with by law anyhow, there's no way for them to say that it's impossible to repair, because it is possible. Otherwise, they would not be allowed to put these products on the market. And yes, the scope is restricted for the moment. As I said, new categories of products will be added, but again, this is a policy choice. This is also something that we see the Parliament is trying to extend. We will see the member states have also different approaches to this. So I would say that this is still as with many actually other elements, it's a starting of a discussion, I would say, and we will see where all of this will balance out. But again, these are all valid points, and we did not come up with this without taking a further look and really analyzing the pros and cons of different options.
We could have some final comments from Pierre or Gilles from Paris.
Yes, this is Gilles speaking from Repair Café Paris. Well, what we see here, we are volunteers, and we repair freely, and everything is free, and what we see is there is a problem related to the cost and the value of repairing. I mean that when it's cheaper to buy a coffee machine than to well, spend 2 or 3 hours in a repair cafe waiting for your fixing of your machine, well, we can't. There's no competition in this. There's only a social gesture from the person that wants the machine fixed. And we try to work on this as well, to make people understand the real value of the reparation, in the sense that with less waste, with less health cost related to pollution, then it makes life better to everyone. And this is a very sensitive question. And I don't think that as long as it costs 10 or 15 euros to buy a new coffee maker or a new toaster, well, then it won't be profitable. and for businesses to offer repairs. We can't compete. We can only compete if we are volunteers, and we do this on social grounds, and working on the effect on mobilizing people and making people understand what is the value of the reparation.
Say, well, unless you have a specific response to that, maybe we can, thanks for all the comments and your presentation. I mean, one thing that I just wanted to bring up is that I guess there's something here about the goal, and Right to Repair originally started as a sort of citizen-driven initiative from US across to Europe. And I guess Repair Cafe activity in Europe now is not insubstantial. Maybe of the 2,700, probably maybe to 80% are in Europe, and the numbers are growing quite significantly. So you do on a monthly basis actually have a lot of Repair Cafe activity going on. So, and particularly the average Repair Cafe rate is about 63%. So you've got a lot of repair activity going on in the informal sector, driven by students. So they're sitting outside the economy and in the society, if you like. And I think perhaps it's something for the Commission to further think about, because it's not small activity now. Yes, it was maybe 10 years ago, but as I think Martine was mentioning, there's repair cafes, many opening now on a weekly basis. So the activity is only going one way. So I think it is perhaps something that's worthy of more consideration by the Commission, even if it's at the level of, balancing manufacturer and consumer citizen, but also how the platform could be used as I think you said yourself, as a communications mechanism to make citizens aware that repair cafes exist.
No, absolutely. And I think what we need to also bear in mind, because I understand that, of course, you are heavily involved in this activity on day-to-day basis. And as you said, it does grow, it keeps on growing, right? But we need to remember that we cannot, as I said at the beginning, do everything in one piece of legislation. So I think that if you look at the speed and the numbers of Commission proposals that are there on the table, it's where we are making an incredible effort in trying to move things forward. And I think we need to all acknowledge that I understand the expectation, because the expectation is high, and this is very important for citizens, for everyone, for the environment. But we need to take this step-by-step approach. So as Martine said also earlier at the very beginning, this is just the beginning also for us. It's important. The topic is growing and growing, and I don't think it's going to become less popular anytime soon. So we have years to come, and these things will just progress, and we will develop it. We will amend the legislation, and slowly, but little by little, hopefully we will make the right to repair reality. But indeed, we need to acknowledge that these things unfortunately take some time, and they cannot be done at once. We have procedures in the EU, and then it takes time before the member states put in place the legislation. So unfortunately, it's true, a lengthy process.
No, absolutely. I mean, you've got the new legislation, and then you've got the integration of the repairability in the existing legislation, particularly in the electronic sector. So I think, the issue for many of us who are at the front line is we see very few products that are designed for repairability. And so it's going to take some time for us to start to see in repair cafes those first range of products that are, and there's going to be a lot of legacy products coming through repair cafes. So I think by 2035, 2040, there's still going to be a need for repair cafes. I don't see suddenly overnight, a little bit as you're saying, that design for repairability is going to suddenly get fully integrated into design and development departments. But anyway, ongoing discussion, perhaps, interesting to hear how things progress. So thank you very much again for your time, and thank you very much for the speakers and their comments. We're now going to move on to discussion around the youth aspects of repair cafes. And to start off, we have a video from a lady from the Netherlands who is 23, and she set up a repair cafe. So hopefully the technology is going to work and we're going to be able to hear her video.
I will tell you something about Repair Café Bunnik, a local repair cafe in the Netherlands, and my experiences in setting up and running a repair cafe.
Oh.
A repair cafe. But first, I will quickly introduce myself. So, my name is Lynn. I was 23 years old when I started a local repair cafe in Bunnik. I study industrial design and work as user experience designer at a design agency. And when preparing the presentation, I was thinking, when did I first hear about a repair cafe? 3 years ago, I was watching a vlog on YouTube from everyone. I will tell you something about Repair Café Bunnik, a local repair cafe in the Netherlands, and my experiences in setting up and running a repair cafe. But first, I will quickly introduce myself. So, my name is Lynn. I was 23 years old when I started a local repair cafe in Bunnik. I study industrial design and work as user experience designer at a design agency. And when preparing the presentation, I was thinking, when did I first hear about a repair cafe? 3 years ago, I was watching a vlog on YouTube from Nienke Plas, and she films her daily life. And one day, she visited a repair cafe in Amsterdam with her family. And that video was the start of my repair cafe journey. Quickly after I was introduced to the repair cafe concept, I got the idea of launching my own repair cafe. And I just started with my graduation project, and we were in lockdown due to COVID, so I had plenty of time. I started searching for collaboration partners to help me with a location and the finances. And finally, I started a partnership with the local library. Oh, and in the meantime, I pursued my bachelor degree. When I found a partner, I received funding from the city of Bunnik to cover all costs for the initial stages. And in June, it was about time to make my initiative public. An article in the local newspaper was published to announce the launch and search for volunteers. So we started with 8 volunteers, and since September, we organize monthly repair events. Well, now I will elaborate a bit more about Repair Café Bunnik itself. So, Repair Café Bunnik is located in the city of Bunnik. The city of Bunnik consists of 3 towns, Bunnik, Odijk, and Werkhoven, and has about 16,000 citizens. Bunnik is very active in local initiatives, and we highly value sustainability. And as you can see on the map, we are surrounded by repair cafes. So I was wondering, why don't we have one? So the first month was really observing what kind of audience are attracted to the repair cafe. And after organizing repair events for almost 2 years, we can conclude that the repair cafe is a great success. Visitors from all ages know where to find us, and I really like the diversity. And it makes me proud when parents and grandparents, often grandfathers, visit the Repair Café with their children and grandchildren. So our visitors have various motivations to visit our Repair Café. Some just can't afford a new product. Others are highly motivated to repair their product for sustainability purpose, even though repairing a product costs more than buying a new one. But visitors also come to repair the product because of the emotional value, and the social element is also very important, especially for some older adults. We organize our repair events at a central location. We use a big hall at a brand new building complex where the local library, multiple schools, and the music schools are located. The location was really helpful, especially at the beginning, because visitors of the library or music school walk by and notice us. And out of curiosity, they ask what we are doing, and often they come back another time with their broken product. And our location is also ideal for children. It allows them to read a book in the library or play at the schoolyard when they have to wait or lost their interest, as sometimes repairing can take some while. Oh, and a fun fact, we noticed a slight increase of people with children when the toy library nearby is also open. So we started with 8 volunteers, and along the way we learned what kind of problems people have and what kind of repair skills and knowledge we need. So our team extended, and at this moment our team consists of 16 volunteers. Volunteers applied via Facebook, Examen, a local volunteer platform, and just walked in during repair events. We have 11 repairers with various knowledge. They think about repairing electrical appliances, clocks, or sharpening gardening shears. We also have 2 clothing experts and 3 hosts, including myself. As you can see, a lot of our volunteers are of working age. 1 week ahead, everyone can sign up for the upcoming repair event, and this makes volunteer work at our Repair Café flexible and easy to combine with their busy lives. At the age of 25, I'm the youngest in our team, and our oldest volunteer is 76. The rest is below 70. The distribution of ages resulted in a wide range of repair expertise, but I have to admit that our oldest repairers can repair almost everything. Well, one of my goals was reaching a diverse audience, but how can we reach them? The city of Bunnik helped us through their connections with local organizations. And for example, the Schoudermantel supported our initiative by sharing our content among their audience, and that is mainly teenagers and their parents. Using various channels from other organizations, we got exposed to a wide audience who didn't know about or were not specifically interested in the Repair Café. Over time, I've put a lot of effort in new collaborations to extend our services and find creative ways to get the attention. They are mapped in this ecosystem. So, for example, in collaboration with Repair Café Utrecht Oost, and last year even with a professional from the Slijperij, we organized an annual garden tool set special where visitors can sharpen their garden shears. This is very popular. Furthermore, we are planning a bee hotel workshop with a young furniture maker. During the workshop, participants learn and make a bee hotel, and they get familiar with our repair event at the same time. We also actively participate in the National Zero Waste Week from Milieucentraal. During that week, we have a very low threshold activity plans, and participants can get a sustainable present from one of our partners during the repair event. It is a creative way to get a lot of publicity, and the little present is a powerful incentive for people to visit a repair cafe for the first time. We are also visible at fairs. For example, we presented at the local sustainability market, which attracted more than 150 visitors. And in September, we have a spot at the local volunteer fair. So we also invest in offline promotion. In collaboration with different partners, we designed, printed and distributed posters, flyers, business cards, and even street displays. This and the local newspaper really helped to get the attention, but at the end, word of mouth is most of it. Further, we use Instagram and Facebook as our main channels, where we share upcoming repair events, actions, repair tips, and experiences. But our best reach rates are in local Facebook communities with over 1,500 members, and even event posts on the Google Business page. So, thank you for listening. Obviously, you don't have to do it all, but I hope you get inspired by how many ways you can reach people, and just be creative and try things out. We also still experimenting. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you. Everyone, I will tell you something about Repair Café Bunnik, a local repair cafe.
Sorry, I'm going to try and move this forward. So I think we have a challenge there to find the youngest repair cafe developer in the world. So I think Lynn is, as far as we can see, the youngest. So she started at 23, is now 25. But if anybody else is aware of anybody else who's set up a repair cafe who's younger than that, please I'm sure Martine would be very interested to know that. I'd certainly be very interested to know that. So unfortunately, Lynn couldn't be with us because she's on holiday at the moment. So I'll now pass across to Kathy, you know, for her observations and thoughts on the on youth and engagement.
Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be in your company this afternoon. This dovetails really nicely with Lynn's comments, and I too, you know, am very admirable of being 23 and starting a repair cafe. My comments today are going to be more directed at the age group, you know, probably young teens to like early 20s. That's kind of my sweet spot. I'd be happy to talk about, you know, engaging younger folks, and feel free to contact me about that if you want to engage in that discussion, because there's a lot to be said there as well. But this particular age group is an age group that I work with quite a bit in my work with the Rockland County Youth Bureau. We're a part of local government. We're a small community right in the suburbs of New York City. And one of the core principles of the Youth Bureau here is lifting youth voices at any opportunity. We believe in youth empowerment. We believe that any activity or accomplishment or initiative that is inclusive of youth voice or consideration or feedback will take anything from good to great. And in my work with the Youth Bureau over the years, my primary focus has been environmental conservation, food sustainability, workplace readiness, career skills, and the like. So the intersection between my concentration and being at the Youth Bureau fits really nicely with the Repair Cafe model. And with that, if you would advance the slide. Next slide. Thank you. So what presentation would be complete without a motivational quote? And this one says, we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And I chose this for many reasons. It's the metaphor is very relevant to Repair Cafe and conservation issues and youth development. Particularly significant is the word build, because when we think about Repair Cafe, we think about building relationships, intergenerational relationships, building skills, and of course, the bigger meaning of the whole Repair Cafe movement, which is to repair and heal the environment and make more sustainable future for everybody. Young people absolutely understand that big mission. They are living climate change in real time. They have that, it's ingrained in them. However, the practical part of Repair Cafe is what's going to deliver them to the meaning, the greater meaning. They are tactile young people. In fact, when I am interviewing young people for my programs, one of the questions that I always ask them is, what's your learning style? And they always, 9.9 times out of 10, out of the several hundred young people that I've interviewed, will always say, I'm a tactile learner. I'm a visual learner. Show me and I'll learn it. They, you know, that's really their primary initiative in terms of like how they're going to intake the world. So that is really important. So again, while the bigger meaning is there, you know, the way you're going to deliver your message to young people is through the practical and the tactile. But you first have to get them in your door. So that's your number one goal, is just get them in there, get them through the door. So that will take us to our next slide, which is getting them in the door. This is highly, you know, practical. The first reason, you know, and the first way you're going to get them through the door is by making all of your outreach relatable to young people. Make them feel welcome. You are going to put it on all your outreach, you know, material. This is a youth-friendly event. This is a youth and family-friendly event. You're going to put it in your press releases and your social media outreach. This is going to, you know, make them feel welcome. You're going to go to schools and have relationships with schools, you know, just like Lynn was talking earlier, you know, making things as visible to schools as possible. Clubs, scouts, anything that has to do with anything tactile or artistic, you can kind of, you know, make relationships with teachers and administrators to bring young people into Repair Cafe. That's going to be one of the things that you got to do to get them there. Next slide. But you're going to want to take that one step further. You need to cultivate relationships with other agencies that are youth inclusive. So one of the very, very first institutions that we collaborated with and came out of the gate was a local vocational school called Rockland BOCES. BOCES has many different aspects to their schools, but computer repair, troubleshooting is one of them. And out of all the repair cafes that we have done, there's only one repair cafe that they haven't been at. So they come to my Repair Cafe, they set up their booth, they have everything that they need. It's, you know, I've never had to recruit a computer fixer or a handheld device fixer since my relationship with them. You know, I consider them a sponsor of the event. So vocational schools, colleges are really important to develop relationships with, universities, the professors that teach classes, because as you all know, there's so many relevant topics when it comes to Repair Cafe. You know, it's essentially field work for a student. They can do communications field work, teaching, of course, repair, anything like that is going to be something that brings reciprocity. It's going to bring, you know, benefits to the schools as well as us and the young people as well. So anything STEAM related, in the United States, we have AmeriCorps. Peace Corps is, you know, a kind of like a global corps, but anything that is a service learning youth agency is going to be some place that you want to cultivate partnerships with in order to continue a sustainable relationship and having young people come and be repair coaches and assistants, etc. Next slide. So I want to return to the need to make young people feel welcome, and that starts at your intake. When you're putting out the word of that you want young people there, you're going to start getting responses from youth. Their preferred method is going to probably be text or email. I just do email as well as phone. So for any general population, you don't have to be a young person to be terrified by making phone calls. Nobody really likes to do it. Email can also be pretty intimidating for a younger person who, you know, it might be communicating a lot by text. You know, you're probably going to get communications that are kind of, they don't fully have all their information, but you just have to respond to them with open arms. And when you're, you know, engaging youth, especially ones that might be a little bit timid to kind of enter the process of, volunteering with you, your warmth, you have to exude warmth and efficiency. So what I mean by efficiency is, when you engage a young person and you want them to be part of the Repair Cafe movement, you get them on the phone or you're emailing them, you're asked. I don't use applications for this because I think it's just an impediment to the process. I use my relationship with them to develop what their kind of goal is. Are they good at fixing something or repair, or they don't know, so that's my intake when it comes to them. But you're going to have to kind of assess that beforehand to the best of your ability. And then when it comes to the event, you're also going to have to do introductions to all the repair coaches, to the layout, to everything, and all of that outreach and that being the best host at a party for a young person, so to speak. You want your guests to feel comfortable, and in this case, both comfortable and useful and needed. All of those aspects are going to be really important to the welcoming process. Like I said, you're going to want to put them with repair coaches and have a floor manager that also are empathetic to youth. I will be honest with you, the first hour of your Repair Cafe, if you have a lot of young people participating, will probably be a hot mess. I think most people in the first hour of their Repair Cafe sometimes are a hot mess until you get your groove. It's almost like setting up a chessboard. You want to set it up, and then you want to move your pieces strategically. With young people, if you put the organized young people who are positive, and you can put that in your welcome table. You can put the some young people as fix-it assistants, setup, breakdown, working with kids. You're going to move your chess pieces throughout the time. So you might find that you've placed a young person and they're starting to gravitate someplace else. That's pretty amazing, and that's kind of what you want to do. Is you want to kind of have those adaptability while you're answering their questions and welcoming them, as well as just checking in on their needs. Next slide. So I bled into a little bit of my next slide, which is let things unfold. Once you set everything up, the event is the teacher, and that's the tactile part that I referred to earlier. Once they get to move through the event and they kind of get acclimated to the event, their personalities start to emerge. And this is my favorite part. It's the magic. The slide, the picture that I had selected here is purposeful. This is our last Repair Cafe, and that young woman's name is Hoodie. And this was the first time our computer folks couldn't show up because they were graduating from high school. And Hoodie just sat down with a small kit of tools and just started a computer a computer station just right there. And that's how things unfold. She just did it. We had young people who were assisting in other places and then realized that they needed kind of a gluing station, to glue pieces and things back together again. And then that just emerged. That's the kind of organic unfolding that you want to happen. And that's where you're going to have the young people finally starting to get your mission and enjoy the event, feel empowered, feel like people are listening to them. They're going to be helpful. And these are all the things that's going to tie the whole mission together. So next slide. A couple things that don't fit into my comments. I just wanted to say that, if you're engaging young people, one of the ways that you can kind of see, close the deal with them if they're hesitating about volunteering is tell them that they can bring friends. Like, that's a great thing that, people want to do things in a social way. Parents and caregivers with their children, like Lynn was talking about, like they can be repair coaches and assistants together. Don't forget to offer up any kind of documentation that they might need for any kind of community service that they might need. Honor societies frequently require community services, as do some classes. So you'll have that for them. Have the next repair date handy to share with them. And, I can't underscore enough that a fun, inclusive, and collaborative environment means everything. Next slide. So in closing, I just want to kind of repeat a couple of key points. Young people are integral to the Repair Cafe movement. They should be a solid part of your volunteer recruitment plan, and it will pay off in spades. They have hidden talents. They can do a lot. It's up to you to kind of mentor them and tease that out of them. It's a blossoming that is really worth seeing. They need your patience. There's a phrase that I'd like to banish from all of our languages, which is, it's just common sense. Like especially when we're talking to young people, it doesn't even apply to young people. It could apply to, anybody. but you don't know what you know till you know it. And you might be the person that teaches that young person something new. So try to be patient with them. The benefits of their contributions will be well worth your time. And then finally, youth are the key to the future of Repair Cafe. As you're saying, 2035, 2040, we are still going to be doing this. And they are an incredibly important part of the lineage and the succession plan when it comes to Repair Cafe. And finally, next slide. So I am a very proud Repair Cafe, big fat nerd, and I would talk to you any day, anytime about Repair Cafe in any capacity. Please use my number if you'd like to continue this conversation. And then finally, the last slide, I just have to acknowledge all of these these people, Sustainable Hudson Valley, Rockland Green, the Youth Bureau, all the folks that make this possible. I also want a big shout out to John Wackman, who, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to put all my thoughts into action when it came to inclusivity, youth, and Repair Cafe. So big thanks to that, and thank you for listening to my comments. I appreciate it.
Much indeed. I'm trying to skim through some of these comments that have come through, but they found somebody mentioned they had somebody who was 17 or 18 that set up a Repair Cafe. Be interesting to know.
Nice.
To know more about that. Various other comments coming through, but let's go on to the next presentation, and let's, if we have enough time, come back for some other questions. I'd like to just pose one perhaps for you to think about, Kathy, whilst we've got the next presentation. It is certainly one of the issues in the UK, at least, are issues around so-called safeguarding. To do with under 18, so there is quite strict laws around that, and something called DBS checks, which is checking on people's backgrounds to see if there are any issues. So there's, there is bureaucracy, there's policies need to be set up, there need to be nominated people to manage that process. So maybe if you could have a think about that in the US, and then I'll maybe we'll come back with after Bilba's presentation. So I'll pass across now to, we've moved across, we jumped across somewhere. So I'm quite sure what's happened to Bilba's presentation here.
Everyone.
Are you okay to just speak to your
I have my presentation, Martin, if you would like me to share it.
Yeah, I thought I'd include it in the deck, but clearly I have for some reason it's not got in there.
I'll share my presentation.
If you could try and share your screen, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do that now. 1 second. Let me just start the presentation.
Okay, great.
Okay, can you see my presentation, everybody?
All good.
Okay, right. My name is Billy Bakra, and I organise the Spencer's Wood Repair Cafe. We've been running for 15 months, and on Sunday we had our best session ever. We had 40 people attending, and we managed to raise £360 for a local charity. So I'm really dead pleased with that. I was attended the UK Repair Cafe conference, and I facilitated a roundtable discussion on engaging youth. So this is a collection of ideas from the whole of the UK Repair Cafe conference rather than from me. And I've broken it down into what the problem is, talking about different age groups, things to consider, how to create contacts with the local community, and suggested activities. So I can just see the end of my slide. Just let me just move my thing out of the way. Right, so we've acknowledged that young people are more aware of the cause and effect of climate change, and they are looking for ways in which they can contribute to reducing the consumption. So obviously encouraging young people to get involved in the Repair Cafe is going to be a positive move. But we then also acknowledge that the fix and repair skills lay with the older generation. And what we needed to do was seek ways in which we could pass on these skills to the younger generation, but in a fun and interactive way. So one of the other things as a group that we realized was that actually you can't just talk about young people. You needed to kind of talk about different age ranges. And so I've broken this down into 3 groups, like perhaps interacting with under 10s, and they need much closer supervision. And perhaps between the age of 10 and 17, we need to engage them in projects that are of interest to them, and they could bring their own items. That doesn't mean the under 10s can't, but they will need more closer supervision. And I know that over 18 doesn't count as a kind of classification in youth, but we do need to think about the young adults as well. And there we came up with ideas of having them as apprentices, and you work with more experienced supervisors so they could gain skills that way. So that's breaking down into age groups. Sorry if I'm going fast, but I only know I've only got 10 minutes to cover this. Is that okay, Martin?
Yeah, fire ahead.
Okay, so things we came across, things that we needed to consider. One of the things in the UK, and it's probably true of other countries, is safeguarding young children. And in the UK, we have to create safeguarding policies and always ensure that no young person under 18 is left alone with an adult at any time while they are at your Repair Cafe. So that's vital. But the other side of safeguarding is also if you get any information given to you that you have of concern, or to any of the volunteers, you need a mechanism of dealing with that side of it as well. As Repair Cafes, we all have to do a risk assessment. This is a vital part of getting the insurance in the first place. But if you do have young people in your Repair Cafe actively involved, you need to make sure that they are part of your risk assessment and covered under your insurance. As I mentioned earlier, for 16-year-olds and above, or whatever age range you want, you may want to think about having them as apprentice where they can work alongside more experienced fixers. So that's one way to engage them. We also had a lot of discussion in our roundtables about DBS checks. This is something in the UK that's required of people who work with young people. And we did have a discussion as to whether we had to have people who had DBS checks in your Repair Cafe to work with young people, and opinions varied, and we did have long discussions, but we didn't really come to any conclusion because people had different perspectives. So I can't really say yes or no to that one, but it's something that you should really consider about who these young people interact with while they're at your Repair Cafe. It would be great to work with schools, we all know that. But if you approach a teacher and say, oh, would you like your children to be involved in an after-school activity involving repairing items, they will say yes, but they will do nothing about it because they have no time. They are hard pressed. So one of the things that we discussed was how can we engage with schools in an alternative way? And one of the suggestions was community engagement officers. Most schools have them, and they are probably your best contact to try and get into a school. Another approach would be something called parent-teacher associations, which is where the parents and teachers work together to do out-of-school activities. So that's another point of contact. In the UK, we have something called a Duke of Edinburgh Award, and that's where they have to do things to get their awards, and one of them is repairing. So that's a good set of organisations to try and contact. And as mentioned by Kathy, local scouts and guide groups also have badges, And so you can approach them to see if they can work with the Repair Cafe to get their badges. And another point that you could go to is organisers of youth clubs. They're always looking for fun activities for their young people. So we then went on to discuss what can we actually do with these young people now that we've engaged with them. And some of these ideas, again, running a workshop that fixes items that young people are interested in, for example, toys, bikes, cricket pads, sewing them up, skateboards, Xboxes, Switches, all kinds of things. And also, if it's theirs, they're more invested in it as well. Another example was running art projects. Perhaps they could create a poster for your website or just posters in their own right. That would mean they would have to do some research into a repair cafe and find out what a repair cafe actually does. So that's kind of a two-phase thing there. Or perhaps a model. They could create an art model of something to do with repair cafes. Other repair cafes in the UK have been making bird boxes, and again, as Kathy mentioned, bug hotels. So this could be partially prepared where they finish it off, or it could be created from scratch, encouraging them to bring old fence panels to tree stumps. And so that brings in the environmental and recycle part of it as well. And just lastly, just wanted to cover some more activities to engage young people. Encourage them to go to charity shops, buy items, and then run a workshop on how to alter and repair items and make them more fashionable. You could run workshops to alter prom dresses, jackets, trousers. So they might have bought something, they needed to make it tighter, make it longer, whatever. You could run a workshop around that. And in the UK, we often have family members come along with the volunteers. For example, running as runners, making sure everybody's okay, making sure everybody's got refreshment. Or in my case, I have a young girl who runs a make me an offer table, which we've had items donated, and she then sets it all up and she manages it herself and she loves it. So the runners could also help ensure volunteers have refreshments and tools they require and engage with the visitors. So these are some ideas that have come up from the UK Repair Conference last month. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. And yeah, just a bit of experience from our side is we certainly, it was amazing to see, we had a couple of Duke of Edinburgh's kids, and it was amazing to see the growth in their confidence because they worked on our front desk. So this is so it's not just repairing, it's the front desk, as you were saying, the interaction with people. I think the other key thing that is perhaps worth noting, where one doesn't have to get into some of these, you know, let's say policy issues, is if there is the, you know, father and daughter or mother and daughter, mother and son. So if there's a parent there, you know, there's less of these challenges that has to be faced. So that's another aspect, at least from our experience. But going back to Kathy, what is the situation there around some of these challenges in the US in terms of legislation and et cetera, et cetera?
I think you hit the nail on the head, no pun intended, when it comes to bureaucracy. There is no specific legislation that requires, at least I can speak for New York, that requires background checks for this type of audience. However, in another hat that I wear through AmeriCorps, our people who are 18 or older need to be background checked to participate in AmeriCorps items. So when it comes to Repair Cafe, a lot of times, probably 60% of our volunteers are background checked. It's always, I think that it's going to be a formidable challenge should volunteers be required to be background checked. I don't necessarily think of any protective measure is going to be a good thing as long as it's, of course, cost effective and kind of easy to do. That could be the big challenge though. And, you know, I mean, everything that we do is out in the open and complete, you know, we don't do anything in rooms, everything is big open spaces, everybody's accompanied. But I know that, you know, won't be sufficient for some people.
Do we have any questions or observations from the audience? Maybe you can put your hand up or wave or yeah, I sort of noted that somebody had mentioned that they have even 8 and 5-year-olds attending, and they like to unscrew and rescrew things. So that was sort of quite interesting. So Sat has his hand up.
Hi everyone, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, brilliant. So basically we had our first Repair Cafe this weekend, and one of the organizations that supported us was the local municipality, local council. And they suggested in the mix, they said, why don't you have a session that brought in, you know, kids and have them learn about repair? We were a bit nervous to do that on our first one because of all of the issues that everyone's been discussing earlier. But they were interested in connecting us to an organization that teaches kids about repair through schools. They have these kits that they send to schools. I'm sure, Martin, you know them, Team Repair. And Team Repair, a bunch of university grads who basically came up with this idea to create kits of devices, phones, similar things that are slightly broken, and then the schools teach the kids through a curriculum aspect on how these could be repaired. And so we probably will involve them in the future, but we didn't want to do that straight off the bat. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that. Any other comments or observations? Is that Elizabeth waving her hand? Elizabeth Knight, yeah, you want to unmute yourself, Elizabeth?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of success getting kids from the local BOCES, and I don't know why. We reached out several times, but one of the easiest place that we found to get them was from church groups. Many of them required that the kids have community service hours in order to reach confirmation. We had a team of 7th and 8th graders who were wonderful, both as greeters, helping people carry things in through the door. And then one mother contacted me ahead of time and said her child had been working with his father to repair small engines since the time he was 6. And could he do that? And I said, yes, but he has to sit next to an adult. And I see Fix-It Bob is here, and I think that boy worked with Fix-It Bob and your pal, Rich White. And if I remember the story, he was repairing lamps with Bob, and then someone brought in a lawnmower. And the kid leapt from behind the table, went over, helped the woman put the lawnmower on top of the table. And according to the adult, Rich, who was a friend of Bob's, the other coach, he said the kid diagnosed the problem accurately in under 60 seconds. At the next Repair Cafe, the 7th grade boy brought another friend of his to work with him under adult supervision. And then one of the other favorite ones was a woman who brought in a handheld hairdryer to be fixed, and it couldn't. And she said, well, where's the recycling box? And one of the coaches said, take it over to the kids' take it apart table. And she said, oh, you mean the reuse play station, where the adult had cut off the plugs and had taken the thing apart safely for the kids to work on to a greater degree with their little tiny screwdrivers. But, and his name was, escapes me at the moment, but he provided an entire list of recommended safe items for children to work on that's in the appendix of the book that John Wackman and I co-authored called Repair Revolution. And that turned out to be very successful, particularly with younger kids. We had a harder time with high school. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I see Steve and Gilles. Just one quick comment is we've also tried to engage students as well because we're co-located near a large design school. But one of the challenges that we found was getting them there, as Kathy highlighted. because repair cafes for certain types of students may not be seen as cool. But once we got them there and they started to see it and they started to see, you know, how the repairers work, they suddenly got much more interested. So I really resonated with what Kathy was saying there about getting them there in the first place to experience it. So Steve and then Gilles. Steve Crickler.
Yeah, thank you. I have a 13-year-old son, and he's always seen me repairing things around the house and help in the garden, repairing tools and things. So several times I've taken him along. I'm a regular at our repair cafe for the last couple of years, but he often comes along. And a nice little anecdote, he's very keen, being 13, he's keen on fixing computers, and he made his own computer and things. And a few months ago, somebody brought in an old electronic game system, the precursor to a PlayStation, which wasn't working properly. And my 13-year-old had a look. The game was older than he was, but he managed to get it going and fix it. And just another thing to share, our local repair cafe in Kenilworth in Warwickshire, we've been to a couple of schools, primary schools, so sort of 8, 9, 10-year-olds. We've taken things, they've brought stuff in, their toys and things that needed repairing, and we've taken things in for them to take apart, see how they work and put it together again, and they love it. So they're certainly primed for the future.
Great, Steve. Just before I pass to Gilles, it just reminded you of from our repair cafe, one of the things that we've historically done is we've been out, I think, to some Cubs and Scouts, and by going out to the schools or these groups, you actually fall within their policies for safeguarding, whatever, which means you don't have to deal with all that bureaucracy within your own repair cafe. So it's another strategy to get out there without those challenges. So Gilles?
Yes, thank you. Some of our initiatives with children, we found many libraries are really interested in hosting our events with children, but always with parents present. This is not daycare. Sorry to be blunt, but this is very important to say that. And so parents must be there, must be with children, and we can do many things with children. We can teach them how to use tools, how to use soldering, how to use multimeters, how to sew. That's with teenagers, 14, 15 years old, 3 hours very quiet sewing some bags or things like that, and it's really impressive how curious they are and how they want to learn and to understand how it works, how you do things, how you manage to improve your knowledge, and that's really interesting. Very it gives a lot of energy, actually. And I put on in the comments, I put a link to our Zoom sessions every Monday. Sorry, it's only in French, but that's good. That's a benefit from COVID period, in the sense that we started to make distant repair cafes, and each Monday evening there is a repairing session, and people are like us. Someone is repairing in his house or apartment, and there are 2 or 3 or 4 fixes that can help and advise and tell them, yeah, you should use this tool and you should use this, and they help in finding the repair manuals or giving advices on how to fix or to find the way to disassemble an object. And this is really nice, but it's only for French speaking people. So if you want to join, there is the link in the comments. And finally, about the repair cafes for children, these are special repair cafes that you can, if you don't do soldering, you can do without electricity. So it's very mobile, and you can do that in places you don't often go to repair. So we had some larger events, and we used in the nearby these events, we used squares or parks, and with the we relieved the children and the parents with our simply tables and chairs and screws and some toys and multimeters, and it was very nice to teach them how to understand how things work and how things could be disassembled or understood.
Brilliant. So what I suggest is maybe an 8-minute break, loo break, coffee break, wine break, beer break, and then we come back in about 10 minutes for the final session around different repair cafes, that challenges at startup, the opportunities, particularly how repair cafe, older repair cafes have evolved and changed. So 10 minutes, and then we'll have the final session. So see you in 10 minutes. So guys, do you want to, Jan and Mikael, do you want to kick off with your presentation, and I'll move it forwards, on the next slide sort of basis?
Yeah, okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to some of you. My name is Michiel Tucker. I am representative for Repair Café Delft in the Netherlands. We are one of the somewhat more established repair cafes in the Netherlands. And Martina asked me to tell you something about how we started and what we're doing today. Next slide, please. So Repair Café Delft started actually on January 28, 2012. Back then, we were quite a small organization, approximately 10 people. We held about one meeting each month. And it started actually as an initiative from Milieudefensie, which is a Dutch environmental or climate group, and a couple of volunteers from their network. With a lot of support, from what I heard, from Repair Café International. I myself was not present at the time, but I joined later on. But we started in a single location with a small group, but Repair Café Delft has steadily grown since then. Next slide, please. So these days, Repair Café Delft is a foundation in Dutch law with all the appropriate registrations, which actually helps a bit when talking about subsidies to municipalities. Being in the city of Delft, we have a good relationship, good cooperation with the Technical University Delft. For instance, they allow us to use their student workshop for our meetings, free of charge. We also work with several sustainability groups in Delft, which also allow us to host meetings at their facilities. We have over 70 volunteers, between 28 and 82 years old. Quite a big group. Approximately 20 to 40 people are present at the regular meetings. We host meetings on the first and third Saturdays of each month. And we do that on 2 locations in the Delft city. We always have one repair meeting at the Delft University, at their science center, their student workshop. And we have one repair meeting either at the Delftshoven retirement home, which allows to use their hall for repairing, or in the summertime at the Stunt Upcycling Campus, which is a local sustainability group in Delft. And all these organizations allow us to use their facilities free of charge, which is really nice. With those, 4 repair meetings each month, we manage to do approximately 100 repairs. It varies a bit. We have about a 60% success rate, with an additional 20% half repaired or advising, or just waiting for spare parts. Most of our marketing happens through the local newspapers, of course. We have banners, which we can show in the Delft city. These days, the municipality is being a bit difficult about that, but that actually provides us some nice marketing. We, of course, do social media, but most of our visitors hear about Repair Café Delft through word of mouth, or they're simply repeat visitors. At each of our locations, we have our own storage. So they allow us to store our tools and equipment at those locations, spare parts, and of course a lot of consumables. We do have to provide those things ourselves, but we don't need to move them around for each meeting, which saves a lot of time. And we are actively working on safety during our meetings. So working methods with also personal protection equipment we provided. Of course, we have our own website shown on the slide since 2012. I thought it was built later on, but building these slides, I heard that the website was actually launched 5 days after the first meeting. So that started early on. Next slide, please. Since 2020, we have started allowing visitors or requiring visitors to register repairs in our own repair monitor, and we assign each repair their own time slot. In 2020, this was of course required during COVID because we needed to manage the number of people visiting our meetings at the same time. We need to manage the flow through our locations. The additional benefit, of course, that our volunteers were able to log into the system with their own accounts. They can choose the repairs that they're interested in and also prepare for those repairs. So you can search for documentation, you can order spare parts beforehand, look for repair manuals, those kind of things. Communication with visitors and volunteers then usually takes place via phone or email. And the system is built on a commercial available system, web-based system. So that includes all the privacy regulations and personal data is protected and only accessible to the authorized users. Since all the COVID misery has ended, we can also take repairs again for people who don't register beforehand and who just come by to the meeting. So that's a bit more spontaneous. But of course, you don't get a chance to prepare beforehand. Since then, we've asked each volunteer to tell us how many scheduled repairs he or she wants to do, and that varies per person. But it allows us to create a planning, and it leaves some space in the planning for all the walk-ins, the unplanned repairs. So this is a system that we are still maintaining up to date, and we plan to do that in the future. That was my presentation. Next slide. Yeah. So that's a bit about us, Repair Café Delft. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Maybe I'll just ask one question, and then we can go into the other presentation and pick up some general questions at the end. So I mean, our experience within COVID, we developed a sort of online triage system. People could book in, you know, their slots, etc., and it worked really well. I mean, there's a lot more back office to do it in terms of organisation, but we made a decision to actually go back to just physical drop-in, despite the system working efficiently. Because it sort of worked, and it's something that I've seen emerging in our wider UK group that we have, that people are looking at online systems, and like you guys, we're not as experienced as long running as you guys, but for being around for a while, we sort of stuck with what works, we find. So I'd just be interested. You seem to have like maintained a sort of hybrid sort of system. Could you
Correct.
just expand on that a little?
Yeah, correct. We used to do only walk-ins before COVID. That COVID changed that, of course. And after COVID ended, we actually held an inquiry between our volunteers. My first expectation was actually that we would drop the registration system, that everyone would want to go back to the walk-in system. But to my surprise, I think over 2/3 elected to keep the system online because you can prepare your repairs beforehand. So our volunteers have some idea on what is coming towards them, and they seem to really like that. So we are still a bit looking into the hybrid system and how to arrange that. Yeah, it's still a bit trial and error. We're not there yet, I think, but we're managing the walk-in system quite well. The problem is waiting time for the walk-ins. That's the main thing.
Yeah, might I add on that? I hear that from other participants and countries too. Yeah. That for the visitor, it's nice to have a booked time slot to know when to arrive, so that they don't have to wait for 2 hours.
It is our experience that so in Repair Café Delft, we always also arrange the cafe part. So we always have coffee and usually some cake or stuff around that. And that really helps with the waiting. People really seem to enjoy that.
Yeah, but we also have to take care of our volunteers, and we want to have their opinion and please them in the way they prefer the working. And most of our volunteers express the preference of the system of pre-assigned time slots. And well, the volunteers, they are our capital, so we need to take care of that.
Absolutely, I recognise that from our experience. Repair cafes aren't repair cafes unless you have your volunteers, and you've got to look after them. And yes. we also learned that things. That it was interesting that they came back saying they liked the pre-reg. I mean, the other thing that came back to us along that lines was, as the sort of trustees, we once made a decision in terms of scope of the products we take, not to take, for example, flat screen TVs. But then we found that a number of the repairers want to do flat screen TVs. So it goes back to your point of just asking, keeping good dialogue going on with the repairers, exactly as you said. I'm sure there'll be some more questions, but we'll know if Rebecca is there and you can share your screen or try and share your screen. Are you there, Rebecca?
Rebecca was there. I have seen her.
Yeah, so did I, Martine. But I had a lot of dialogue with her by email, so I don't know what's quite happening. So I think what's going on, as there seems to be a bit of variability there. I think what I'll do is
there. I see her in the picture. She's waving at us.
Okay, well, can you, Rebecca, can you share your screen? Because I think you said you were able to do that from your side, as Billy did.
I see she's talking, but I don't hear her.
I don't hear either.
She has to unmute.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So unmute, I think, Rebecca, and I think we're in business. Oh. We can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. What I suggest is that perhaps you have a look at your audio, because we can see your lips moving, but we can't hear the words coming out. So we just can't hear you. So maybe if you look at your mic, and what I suggest is that if you have a look at that. Because I think it's at your end somewhere, that if Darren perhaps does his presentation first, and then you can sort that logistic out, and then we can come back to you, because at least we know you can share your screen now, which is great. So what I'll do is I'll pass across to Darren, and then we'll come back to you, Rebecca, and for your presentation. So give me a second, and I will bring up. So Darren, are you there? Oops.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move across to your slide and just tell me when you want me to move to the next slide.
Hi, everyone. Darren Lindig here from Boise, Idaho. I work for HP, and we thought we would do a repair cafe, and we just had that last a couple weeks ago. So just to introduce myself, I'm a material scientist. I work with, I'm an engineer and focus on laser jet quality within our company. Go on, next slide. So I just thought we'd talk about, the background, why we did this, how we did it, some results and feedback, and what we learned. I know that we were a little bit different in this being an in-house event, so I'll explain some of the details on that. Go ahead. So just some background. In Boise, we design and develop laser jet printers. So these are printers that you'd find in your office. And our site has around 1,500 employees. We thought we would take advantage of our community to run a pilot of such that we could have a little bit more control on our event and see how it would go. I myself am involved with the quality of refurbished components within our LaserJet products. So I have a lot of specific experience with repair of our own products, certain aspects or certain specific products and assemblies. And really, we have a lot of engineers on site, which we pull from for volunteers. But we wanted to make sure that this isn't just an engineering event. This is inclusive to anybody who has a passion for fixing or circularity. On the next one. Yeah, and really within HP, sustainability is pretty core to our discussions. It's a topic every day, and it's pretty broad as far as our sustainability. Climate is one of those in sustainability, human rights, digital equity, and then within climate there is a lot of around carbon, water, waste, circularity being one of those, and materials, forests, supply chain, operations, all that kind of really, and we're very involved with circularity within the company. But this event, we're bringing repair awareness both internally, as just a person, but also bringing awareness externally and internally within our company. So, and as far as employee engagement, we really do encourage, as in the company, to volunteer. We're encouraged to take 4 hours per month to help give back to the community, and this is kind of one of those employee activities that we can get involved with, and it's worked out well. Wanted to make sure it was a fun event for everyone, and I think we definitely had some fun while we did that. I know that for some, fixing is fun, and for others, getting products back that in working condition is the fun part. So it's good for both sides of things, as you all know. And because we have large enough, we thought we'd run it as a pilot. We were able to control it and have both what we call our fixers and our participants be from inside the company. We had a little bit more control over that just to see how things would go. So go ahead to the next one. So how we did it, first we made sure we had support within our company to host the event. We gathered up a group of passionate folks around repair to plan this out. We called for volunteers, and we easily had 27 fixers. We ran this on a Friday afternoon, so we had a good portion that were able to commit. We ran through safety concerns with our facilities and our site council. The repair cafe assets were very helpful. The house rules were important as far as setting expectations. I think using the word volunteer also just helps, sets that expectation of people that are coming in. But really, what to expect when you get there, what we expect of the fixers. We had a fixer FAQ session. Do I need to bring my tools? What's provided? All those kind of things was really helpful, I think. And again, the assets that were with the Repair Cafe set were really helpful in that. I think communication of our event was typical, but more internal. We used our site-wide email, posters, word of mouth, that kind of thing. I think we could probably go to the next one. We also brought some of our tools that we could bring in that were already used in the company for different reasons. We did furnish a microscope, which was, I think, helpful. We had plenty of those around site in a general toolbox. But beyond that, the fixers provided a lot of their specific tools of their trade. We had roughly 20 items that came in, 75% repair rate. Really typical items that I think we've seen on other Repair Cafe events. We didn't get any bikes or garden tools, which is probably what I would have expected to see, but I assume if we had twice the participants, we would have seen that too. Anyway, a variety of products, and even our own products as well, which we did expect as well to come through. Go to the next one. So things we learned, I think aligning expectations was probably the biggest thing. You don't want to have anybody that does a service event. You want to make sure that you're not giving surprises, at least negative surprises, to anybody that's coming in. And as far as the fixers go, what to expect, because this was really our first event. And really, this Repair Cafe in this kind of area, although I will say that the city of Boise put on a great Repair Cafe just the week prior, but in this area, it's really an unknown concept. I would say 99% of the people that we mentioned Repair Cafe had no idea of what this was. So I think aligning the expectations for what this is and what to expect and what's going to happen is really important. The other thing that really was helpful, I think, was leveraging the fixer talents. I mean, some people have interest in fixing one thing, or there's the generalists, of course, but just highlighting and communicating what those interests or specialties are, I think, drives specificness of, hey, we have someone who really likes to fix chainsaws. Oh yeah, it's like, oh, now I remember I had that chainsaw doesn't work very well. So I think advertising that was really helpful. It's great to communicate the concept awareness throughout our site and our employees. The idea of repair, and then communicating, participating, driving participation to come in. And one of the things that I think was one of the things that we learned, we did it in-house, and we realized, hey, what would be the worst case of this event? And it was like, well, I guess we have just one person that comes in and we fix an item. And it's like, well, that's fine. You know, it was really didn't take much to organize this event. And so even a small event, you know, I to the extreme where you had one person that they wanted to fix something, and that was your repair cafe, was one person, I think seemed okay. So it was great to do it at a first time event, and we really didn't have big expectations, and I think it was helpful to think about what we were doing, as far as we didn't need to change the world that day. Again, I mentioned the Repair Cafe assets were very helpful. Questions we had were really answered a lot of times, you know, as far as, you know, whether it's posters or the registration forms. It was like, oh, great, we'll just use this. And I think that was really helpful. We didn't need to invent things. And then I think creating awareness and those that are involved is really going to help feed and grow other Repair Cafe events locally. Again, I think we could get volunteers to help with the City of Boise's events. And I think even internally within the company, there's interest in having some of these hosted at other sites, or other people looking for repair cafes in their community. Go to the next one. There's our crew. And then if we have time, there's a video on the next one. It's just a short little 1-minute summary video that we had done.
Hopefully it will work.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. Let's take it start. I'll show you what I've done already. The blade was like flopping all around, and that allowed the blade.
Excellent. So do you see, I mean, like us back in 2014, we ran 2 tests because, you know, at that stage we didn't have any benchmarks to visit anybody in the local area to see how they'd done it, and just bring in other experience to have you test to work the processes through. So it looks like, sort of oddly in parallel, that the city developed one. There's something going on obviously in your city where the, you know, parallel processes. So do you see you guys coming together? I think or do you see you still might continue to run things independently within the facility? How do you see that all moving forward?
Yeah, we're just exploring. I think Catherine's was online earlier. She is from the City of Boise. They're probably going to be more sustainable in their regularity of events, and I hope that we feed into them or partner with them or help them to promote things. I'm not sure if we figured out the cadence that we would do, whether we keep it internally. We were thinking, okay, let's do it internally and then let's open up to the public. Or, you know, we've also thought about other things, about maybe we could host a repair cafe specific to our LaserJet products within the town that we could open up for a day. And, you know, that's a different flavor of events. So we're still exploring what works out best for us.
I mean, have you started to sort of think from a sort of company perspective, as we've heard, you know, there are regulatory changes coming through, you know, in Europe, you know, and really repair cafes almost as a training, experiential training to start to build knowledge and understanding for design and development teams, so that they start to, you know, see the challenges, see what might start to come through over the next sort of 10 years or so. Is that it, or is that a bit far off at the moment?
I think we're very aware of initiatives that are, you know, right to repair initiatives and country regulations, and staying abreast of that. I think, you know, there's certain goals within the company that are trying to improve our circularity, for sure. We've got good goals in that space. I wish we could change everything all at once, but it's you know, moving the ship, you know, moving the needle.
I would have thought that, you know, that this is a model that you could see other parts of maybe HP in other countries in Europe, you know, maybe picking up. Is that a hope or a thought, or have you seen other interest coming in from other parts of HP in Europe or around the world in what you're doing, or is it too early?
Are you meaning for repair cafes?
Yeah. So I could see in, like, you know, let's say, you know, if HP has a facility in the Netherlands, maybe, you know, a team in the Netherlands might say, "All right, that's really interesting. We've heard of repair cafes generally. All right, one's just been organized in Idaho, so therefore, oh, that sounds like it's been accepted by the organization as a legitimate use of time." So, you know, I could sort of see the idea, at least, you know, potentially spreading, you know, particularly in Europe, because that's where the regulatory drivers are going to emerge quicker than perhaps in other parts of the world. So,
yeah, I think for employees, as far as participating in repair cafes, there is good opportunity to there is already good interest in helping in those repair cafes. Oftentimes, you know, companies and their teams are looking for team building events, and, you know, attaching to repair cafes that are around to participate. There's often, you know, there's often groups that are looking for those activities, and I think there's a good way to connect into businesses, corporations that are looking to, I think is a perfect event for volunteering for a lot of groups.
I think it's wonderful that you do such a thing, and to have a special laser jet repair cafe for the public, that would be a first time too. So that would be very special if you were to do that.
Yeah, you know, we're just thinking ideas. I think it'd be great. You know, we might have some people complaining, what about a repair cafe in our town, you know? So we'll see what we can do on trying some of those ideas, which really leveraging from this repair cafe movement.
There's probably within there will be within the network, there would have been HP laserjet printers that have come through the systems, and probably some data and knowledge. So that's interesting other side or angle. But I think your point you're saying about repair cafes, apart from obviously repair, you know, about teaching collaboration, teamwork, all those softer skills, absolutely, you know, you can't run a repair cafe and really, you know, unless you've got that teamwork going. And certainly from my experience, so I've learned a lot of lessons over 80 odd sessions with different people, different skill sets, you know, dealing with the, you know, with the public. And so I think that, you know, repair cafe as a living laboratory for all sorts of things is an interesting idea. I hope we have still got, we'll try again. Rebecca, are you there?
Yes, it should
all
work.
right, we can hear you.
Now.
Great.
Yes.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Excellent. So thanks, Darren, for that.
Well, hello everybody. Thank you for listening to me. I am Rebecca Pelter. I'm 18 years old. I'm the president of the Repair Café Valoris and the secretary of the Repair Café de Biot since I am 14. I am also the treasurer and the community manager of a European organization that simulate European Union institutions, debates, and policy decisions between young people to sensibilize them to European Union. Well, right now I'm in Ibiza working on my Spanish and French, so please excuse me for my bad English and if I hesitate while talking because of the cross-linguistic interferences I encounter. I will talk to you about the repair cafes in Biot and Valoris that are in the south of France to show you the similarities and differences between these two coexisting French repair cafes in the same department. I have been involved in repair cafes with my father, as you can see, since 2017, starting as an apprentice repairer and then becoming a repairer myself. After attending the European event I mentioned in Paris in 2018 and 2019, I returned to the south of France and wanted to organize one, but someone beat me to it. However, when my father told me that the very first repair café in Valoris had a vacant position of president, I immediately accepted the opportunity. I was thrilled, especially because at that time, allowing minors to be part of and preside over an association had just been passed. In January of 2020, I was unanimously elected as the president of the Repair Café in Valoris, while simultaneously the Repair Café in Biot was being established with my father, Christophe, the president, filing the official documents. Moving into the administrative aspects of a Repair Café in France, let's discuss the statutes that define the association and how it operates. From one Repair Café to another, the statutes can differ, just like the ones for Repair Café Valoris and Biot. The statutes define the organization and the means of operation of the Repair Café. They are voted on and filed with the prefecture, the state. To secure a municipal venue for our repair cafes, which are apolitical and neutral, we prefer to work directly with the local municipalities. This involves signing a convention, which can be quite extensive, 3 sets of 20 pages detailing 60 signatures, making the process lengthy. Furthermore, these conventions can vary from one municipality to another. For example, in Biot, it is relatively straightforward as the municipal services are flexible. However, in Valoris, it requires more effort as the municipality imposes additional electrical safety requirements that prevent us from hosting monthly events. The cost of implementing this safety measure is a concern for the municipality, which differs from other municipalities in this regard. Lastly, it is mandatory for repair cafés in France to have insurance coverage, and our partnering insurer in France is Maif. The insurance contract is highly specific with a maximum capacity limit of 50 people at any given time in the workshop area. The contract includes a deductible, but it provides coverage for both material and bodily damages incurred by our volunteers and the public. Plus, one of us have to get a PSC1, the first aid qualification. In our repair cafes, we have a dedicated or team consisting of 2, 3, or 4 individuals who handle all the organizational aspects. This includes logistics, administrative tasks, liaising with the municipality, its officials and departments, managing purchases, transporting tools for the repair cafes, coordinating with volunteers, collecting articles, addressing public inquiries prior to workshops, managing website and social media updates, applying for grants, obtaining insurance certificates, brainstorming projects to raise awareness about repair cafes, and my roles greatly contribute to these responsibilities. Communication is indeed the main challenge we face. It is simple, no communication equals no attendees, which in turn leads to a lack of volunteers and vice versa. We critically lack communication. One of the most successful strategies was a one-page article about me titled 15 years old president of the Repair Café in the regional newspaper. It had a significant impact as I was young, with 18,000 reads in the newspapers and 17,000 on Facebook. It attracted a lot of people initially, but when the buzz subsided, the attendance declined. Another successful approach is participating in events like the Fête des Associations, the organization's party, where associations are showcased to the public. Every year, this event brings in new volunteers and attracts a large number of people to our subsequent workshops. In Valoris, we have a 10-meter banner on a roundabout announcing the upcoming Repair Café, with a little article in the newspaper sometimes. While in Biot, we are featured in the quarterly magazine distributed to the residents of Biot. Have our next workshop announced on live panels, as you can see, and sometimes also have an article on the newspaper. We also promote our event on our websites, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. Additionally, one of our volunteers sends emails to people who have previously attended the Repair Café. Despite all these efforts, we still struggle to attract enough attendees. In my opinion, the solution is pretty simple. It's easy to say. To reach a wider audience, we need to make Repair Cafés trendy, similar to thrift stores. It could even encourage them to pay less by repairing and learning that it is possible and how. Internationally, launching a media campaign could help raise awareness, and at the local level, people could easily search for the nearest Repair Café in their area. By creating a buzz around Repair Cafés and highlighting their benefits, we can generate more interest and encourage people to participate in the movement. In recent years, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic, we have implemented successful initiatives in collaboration with Repair Café in France. Some of them are here. When we couldn't host in-person workshops, I launched an appeal to other Repair Cafés with the president of the Repair Café de Biot and the president of the Repair Café Tours. This led to the creation of Repair Café Academy, initiated by Repair Café Paris in partnership with Repair Cafés in Brittany, SCT 94, Montpellier, Vence, Valoris, and Biot. We're starting offering remote repair sessions and organize online duplex events, which enabled us to win the MAIF Innovation Award and receive a generous grant of 1,500 euros. Now, anyone can connect to a Repair Café workshop via Zoom and repair their item with us. And by the way, you are all welcome to join us, and the link can be found on our website. Recently, we participated in an eco-citizen festival organized by the city of Biot with the theme recycle instead of throwing away. We set up a giant Repair Café booth that required a lot of organization and time. The Repair Café de Biot invited 12 associations to join the booth with around 40 volunteers, including 9 Repair Cafés, a hack lab, a repair learning association, and our partner, Linux Azure, which is an organization specialized in installing Linux software on obsolete computers. It was a great success, and we conducted numerous workshops at the booth, engaging with the festival attendees. Lastly, we have experimented with theme workshops, which sometimes work well and sometimes not, but we persist in our efforts. One example is the repair learning workshops designed to raise awareness among children. We organize fun and educational games and also swing workshops. For instance, we had a workshop where people could create their own medieval dress or outfit for the largest Templar event in France, which took place in Biot. This themed workshop allows us to engage with different audiences and promote the values of repair and sustainability in creative and interactive ways. Lastly, we have observed that volunteers come and go and the number fluctuates. Sometimes in a Repair Café, we have 5 volunteers, while other times where we have 10, maybe less, maybe more. It can be challenging to maintain a consistent volunteer base, especially after the post-pandemic period when people have become more individualistic and community engagement has decreased, particularly in associations. Nevertheless, we continuously launch volunteer recruitment campaigns. And one factor that encourages volunteers to stay engaged is the tradition of having an aperitif at the end of each workshop. This social gathering fosters a sense of camaraderie and provides an opportunity for volunteers to connect and bond, making the experience more enjoyable and encouraging their continued involvement. Indeed, running a Repair Café requires a significant time investment, and it is an ever-changing endeavor. We have noticed a significant decline in overall association involvement and commitment, but we persist in our efforts to combat this trend every month. We understand the importance of maintaining a strong and dedicated team, and we continuously work towards fostering a sense of belonging and commitment among our volunteers. Despite the challenges, we remain committed to the mission of the Repair Café and the positive impact it has on our community and the environment. Thank you for having listened to me.
I hope you're happier now rather than being sad. Great that we got through the technology and all the other difficulties. So very great presentation. So I missed a little bit at the beginning, but perhaps you sort of clarify a little bit. So you're now 18, but you became the sort of president of the Repair Café when you were 15.
14. It was in January, and I turned 15 in March. Yes.
So you'd been involved with your father, and then you were, it's quite a significant. I would say it's unique for an existing Repair Café to have voted in a young person as the president. How did that come about? Because it's very innovative and very unusual. So What was the background to that?
Well, first, my father repairs everything, and I always was the little ants behind him, passing him the everything and highlighting him, and it thanks to him, and it interested me in repairing things and not throwing away. And Mom, if you're listening to me, I know you don't like all the things that we bring home, trying to repair them. But yes, there's this thing about organizations that attracted me at the beginning and still today. Making bonds, meeting people. The repair cafes are it's a concept which is very social, which is very open to people. We give time to people. So yes, it was interesting. I liked the fact to organizing things, events, the workshops, and everything. And yeah, and everything have worked by itself, petit à petit, little by little, and sometimes it's very hard when you're young, because there's a thing that I was and I'm still a young girl, and there's this, I'm the coordinator, the person that says what to do, that encourage what to do, when that asks some help. And sometimes it's pretty hard, because when they are adults that are 40, 50, 60, and see a little girl or a young girl telling them what to do, how to do everything, there's a distance, and it was pretty hard. And now that I'm 18 and I'm a major person, it's a little bit more okay, because I can manage the bank accounts, and I can decide more things, and with time, people in the associations and the two repair cafes have accepted me.
Great. Well, it's fantastic and great to hear, you know, 3 fantastic cases coming from different perspectives, and each of which have a, you know, unique sets of issues, and particularly the second may be interesting visions for the future. I mean, it's already heard, you know, that we thought, I mean, when we asked then earlier on about young people in the other session, you know, running repair cafes, and we thought, oh wow, somebody was 18 or 17 and you were 14 or 15, you know, and running it. So that's great. So how long, when was the repair cafe originally launched?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
When was the repair cafe originally launched? Was it you know, an early one, or?
It was in 2020, just before the COVID, and the president, the founder president, did things to political people that didn't want him in the repair cafe, so he abandoned his post, his job, and when I became president, we were in a very small place, and then we had as I said, a municipal venue.
Okay, great. Well, that's fantastic. Do you want to stop sharing your screen now,
Yes,
Rebecca, and then
we've seen enough of this cat.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions or observations they want to bring up? I know particularly you know, it's early in some places and later in others, so does anybody have any particular comments or observations they want to bring in, you know?
Well, I have one more question for Rebecca, because young people not usually have much time to do volunteer work. Where do you find the time?
I didn't go to school this year.
Okay.
No, seriously, seriously. No, there's always time. People that are working have time. It's more volunteering. It's more involvement. I asked young people of my age why didn't they want to go in association and organizations, and it's not because of time. It's not because of studies. Maybe the medical studies or the right studies, but it's more that it doesn't interest them because they see it as all people thing, and it's sad to say this, but it's real. And when I said to make Repair Cafés trendy, it is because Repair Cafés, the communication works. I talk in my opinion, in my perspective of Repair Cafés in France, in the south of France, which is a department that is pretty old, and it only touch a class of people, all people that are not working anymore. And if the Repair Café is trendy, like I said, the thrift stores, vintage, all the things that is secondhand, maybe they will say, oh, okay, I want to be like everybody. And it's sad to say this, but young people mostly, not everybody, but mostly think like this. And maybe it could interest them that people young people and workers that are 20, 30, 40 could just go visit and say, oh, it's pretty cool. There's an aperitif at the end. There's a good ambience, and then can return, can say, I want to repair my own things. I don't want to rebuy a coffee machine every year or every 2 years now. And if it becomes trendy, maybe more people from other ages can come to Repair Café.
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
Yes.
How do you think it can become more trendy? Because an issue we observed was particularly young creative students, they saw it as a little bit boring initially, until they went into the Repair Café, as was said earlier. Once they got in there, they were really interested, but it's just getting them through the door.
But there's interesting studies in psychology and communication that tells us that to make it trendy, like the thrift stores, there's this virtual thing, this harassment in every social media. When they open Instagram, when they open Facebook, when they open Twitter, when they open TikTok, when they open Google, they have recommendation. Have you tried Repair Cafés? It's so cool with people that say my 18 years old radio didn't work until then, and a guy or a man or a woman repairing me my radio, and harassing. It's the only way. Vintage and the thrift stores, it's harassment, and at the end, it's a phenomenon that works on everybody. Like, oh, have you seen this? And then there's this, the trend is created. It's at the beginning that we have to work, not in the Repair Cafés. It's pretty cool. The Repair Café, the concepts, the workshops are pretty cool. It's the communications. It's how you discover it.
Yeah,
it's the way it is communicated, and join it, see it, participatory and engagement. So do we have any other comments or thoughts or any particular issues that anybody would like to bring up? Because we got a few minutes more. But you know, as I say, it's still, I don't know what time in the US, and I'm not sure where everybody is now on the screen. I mean, I guess in the Netherlands it's nearly 7 o'clock, and we may be even further. I think we're into some people who are joining from Israel and places, so we're probably further across the world there. Anybody want to bring up any points? Oh, yes, there's Jan there. Yeah.
Yes. Can you make sure that we get some sort of transcript of the chats? Because I saw a lot of chats passing by, but I couldn't read them all. So can you make sure that we all get it?
Well, I will be sending both the link to the recording, and the chat will be sent to everybody as well. So, you know, that's to continue the dialogue and the discussion for all of us. So, unless I can see anybody waving or, you know, putting their hand up, there's a hand up from somebody with a lot of letters in it that says something MacBook at the end. Is it VYMLEVRINK? Is it? Were you putting your hand up to make a comment? Yeah. Yeah, I can't unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to unmute myself. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Vincent from the Netherlands. I'm involved in Repair Café. I'm now staying in the south of France, and I wanted to let you know that I enjoyed every minute of this webinar. It's very interesting. And I won't tell you what we are doing and what we are involved in, but I got some very great ideas, and I want to thank everybody for the great opportunity to get involved in all this. Thank you very much.
Well, great, thank you very much for that feedback. And I mean, one of the things about repair cafes is that it's so rich. Everybody has a story. Everybody wants to tell their story. And I think maybe Martine and I should think about more of these sorts of events, maybe more than one a year, maybe 2 a year or something. Martine and I will get together and have a chat, I think.
That's a good idea, Martin. And as for me, I think it's great to hear so many inspirational stories from you all. And I'm really, well, this sort of events really makes me happy to see how committed you all are, and how resourceful, and how international. And this gives me confidence in the future, that we together as a movement can bring some good back to our communities and to our society and to the future. And I hope that you will continue much longer and expand and share your ideas and inspire each other. And if we do that, then we can come a long way.
Corinne, your hand is up.
Just to say about young people, we have a young welcomer who does the registration, who's 17, and it's great to have her there. And volunteering for your CV to go to university is another great incentive.
It's true.
Maybe there's a need for a young person's repair cafe net, because what we've learned today is there's at least groups of young people leading the repair cafes in Europe and US that we weren't perhaps so aware of, and at least I wasn't aware of in so that's really interesting to hear about that. So again, last call at the bar. Does anybody want to make any final comments or has any further thoughts? If not, thank you all very much for your engagement, and you will hear from Martine and I about some events in the future.
Maybe a last thing.
Yeah, sure.
I think this kind of event is really, really interesting to to recall that Repair Café is a foundation and that we all do the same thing, and we can all do now with the tools that we have, do things together. And even if you're in America, in the USA, and I'm in France, or in in India, in the Netherlands, and everywhere.
100%. It's very international. I think this, the replicability of the model, it works. You know, it's contributing to, you know, all sorts of issues. So I think, thank you all very much. I know we could carry on talking for the rest until midnight, but certainly I'm gonna, I think, close off now. So thanks everybody. See
Thank
you in the
you.
future. Thanks,
Okay.
Martin. Yeah,
Bye
thanks
bye.
to the speakers. Bye. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.